everybody, Wannabe Reviewer here, and welcome back to the Wannabe Podcast, episode 32. Before we begin this week's podcast, I just wanted to give a bit of a quick, I guess you'd call it, update. Basically, for the next 2 weeks, I'm not sure if there's going to be podcast episodes. The reason for that is that next week, Memorial Day weekend, I'm actually going to be at a convention. I believe this year it's called Phoenix Fan Fusion. You know, formerly it was called Phoenix Comic-Con, but they've been changing the names like every year, so it's like a weird thing. But yeah, next week I'm going to be at the convention. That week, there might be a podcast. I'm actually not too sure yet because, if everything goes great, maybe I'll record from like on site. Maybe, I'll even get some friends to like join in, that sort of thing. But because I'm not sure yet, no promises, there might not be an episode. And the week after that, I know for sure I'm not going to have an episode because I'm going to be like for sure out of town, busy with the family trip. So yeah. So next week, there may be a podcast episode, we'll see how it goes. And the week after that, I know for sure there's not going to be one. So yeah, I just thought I'd give you guys the heads up. So that way, if for the next 2 weeks, there's no podcast episode, without explanation or whatever, it would have been kind of weird. At least I think so. But yeah, it's not that I'm sick. It's not that I canceled the podcast or anything. If there's no podcast episodes, now you know why. It's just because I'm busy. With that being said, I think we should transfer over to my week because even though I didn't do like a whole lot, there was some stuff I want to talk about because, I think it's some pretty cool stuff. So basically, the first thing that I want to talk about is that I watched this anime movie that I like really fell in love with. It's called Millennium Actress. And yeah, for anyone who's familiar, the guy who directed Paranoia Agent, Tokyo Godfathers, and Paprika, he's like a really interesting like director guy. He made this movie and it's a really good movie. Basically it starts that there's like this movie studio in Japan that it's closing down. And so there's this guy who wants to make a documentary. And so he and his cameraman, they head over to the house of this actress that she's old now, but when she was young, she was like the star actress from the studio. And basically they get there and, they want to like ask her about her career or whatever. But where things get interesting is that the guy who's like directing the documentary or whatever, he gives her this key. And he says, hey, you lost this like years ago or whatever. What's the story behind this key? Because, it's like she always had it with her. And from there, we get like a flashback, I guess you could say. Like the rest of the movie cuts back and forth between like her explaining like her life and like present day. And so she starts talking about how when she was like a young woman, she might have been like late teens or something. This guy offered her a job role. He said that if she went to like this other like city or whatever, she could be an actress. And at first, she's not really sure if she should take the job or not. However, one day she meets this painter that he's also on the run from the police because he's like very anti-war. I believe, I don't remember if it starts like in World War II era or like a little bit before that. But basically, for whatever reason, he's like anti-war. And he's like really outspoken about it. And the police are after him because, I guess they see him as like a traitor or whatever, I'm not too sure. The point is he's injured, he's anti-war, and he's a painter. And, she takes this guy in and she, takes care of him. And as, she takes care of him and hides him from the police, the two of them bond and she like really falls in love with him. And he gifts her this key and she doesn't know what the key's for, but he says that it's like for something really important. And, she wants to be with him, but he says that, it might not be possible because of how the police is after him. And, sure enough, I don't remember why she leaves, she's doing whatever, I don't know, whatever daily life thing she's doing. But when she gets back to where she had the guy hidden, he's gone because the police was closing in on him. And she remembers that he said that he was going to run away to, I'm forgetting the name of the place, but basically he was going to run away to like this other place. And it's the same place that the director told her she could be an actress. And so she takes up the job as an excuse to hopefully, find the guy, or hopefully like one of the movies, will reach him or whatever and he'll like know where she's at. And from there, it's where the movie gets like really interesting because it like blends reality and fantasy, so you never really know what's happening. Like, each of the movies she's in, they have like themes of like this woman looking for the man she loves, and you know, she's always like looking for him, she's after him, and there's a lot of themes of her like trying to run away from like whatever duty is happening to try to like find her like lost lover. And so you're always not sure if what you're seeing is part of the movie or like part of her real life. And at the same time, even sometimes when you're like, oh, okay, I get it, it's the movie, like there's still like part of her life mixed in. And so it's just like a really interesting movie because it totally blends, like I said, fantasy with reality. And, you know, it's like this whole journey of her and the different movies she played. And she's always looking for this guy and she wants to return the key to him and she wants to be with him, you know, all that stuff. And it's just, I mean, I'm probably not explaining it right because it's just a really weird movie to explain. But trust me, it is like really well done. It's really sad. Like, I don't know. Like I said, it's hard to explain, but trust me, you should watch this movie. It's really good. And I enjoyed it. I recommend it. I think it's really worth watching. And once again, if you want to like look it up, I gotta admit, I'm not too sure like how easy it is to find online, but if you can get your hands on it, it's called Millennium Actress. So, you know, there you go. I would say check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I thought it was like a really well done, very like sad movie that like makes you think afterwards. So, you know, check it out. Moving on, another movie that I watched this week that, you know, it's not as deep or anything, but that I still enjoyed was Detective Pikachu. You know, I do hope to do a review of this movie, hopefully, you know, this Wednesday, so I'm not going to talk about it too much, but basically, like, you know, I guess long story short, it's not great, but it is very fun. Like, if you know, like the plot isn't anything special, the human characters, most of them are forgettable, and it does have some issues with tone, where it kind of flip-flops between being like very serious and then like very cartoony, but all the same, I still really enjoyed it, because I just think that like the world they give us is like really cool. Like the way they integrate the Pokemon into this world is like really interesting. And like the little references they have to the franchise is like really fun, you know, to keep an eye out for it. And I think that like the chemistry between Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu and Justice Smith as Tim, like they have a good chemistry. So overall, I think it's a really fun movie, like if you don't take it seriously. It's one of those things where, like, to be fair, Pokemon games, I mean, you don't really play them like for the deep story or characters anyway. You know, you kind of play them because you're interested in the world. And I feel like that's kind of what this movie is. Like, I think they kind of nailed it in that aspect that, you know, you don't come for like the story or expect like this, you know, deep themes and stuff. But if you're just, you know, if you're just willing to have fun, I think you'll have fun. I think when you see like all the Pokemon hanging out, you know, around Rhyme City, you know, like you have like a little Apom, you know, hanging out in fire escapes, and you have like a little Charmander lighting the walk of like a little food stand, and you have like the little Jigglypuff, you know, in some cafe singing some guy to sleep, you know. I think that's the kind of stuff you'll enjoy, because just seeing the Pokemon interacting with people and hanging out in the world, I thought like that's what was really fun. And like I said, you know, just like all the little references, the chemistry between the two characters, that sort of thing, that's what I think makes the movie worth watching. So, do I recommend it? I think if you're a big fan of the series, I'd say yes. If you're not a fan of the series, then, you know, no, because I don't really think there's a point in watching it. I think it's very much a movie for fans. But yeah, if you're a fan who loves the series, and if you keep in mind that it's just meant to be like a silly, cartoony movie, you know, like similar to like the games or like the anime, then, you know, I think you'll like it, you know? Like, don't think about it too much. I think you'll enjoy it. I think it's a fun movie, so there you go. Finally, the last thing I did this week, and honestly, I would maybe even say I did a little too much of it, is that I played more Saints Row the Third. You know, if you remember last week, I said that I had bought the game, and then I only had a chance to play it for like a little bit before I, you know, had to do the podcast. But, you know, this week I played a whole lot of it, and, you know, I've had fun with it. For anyone who doesn't know, you know, Saints Row, like the series, it started off as like a GTA clone, and then starting with this entry in the series, that's where they went like in a really goofy direction. And yeah, I had forgotten how much weird stuff this game has, but I think if you like over the top stuff, I think you'll enjoy it. Like, it definitely has like some crazy humor. Like, you can run around with like a dildo bat beating cops up. And there's like this whole mini game where it has to do with you. Like, you have a tiger as your passenger, riding shotgun, and you have to like drive around with it before you get mauled. And I don't know, it's like a crazy game. But if you enjoy like that type of game that has to do with like crazy, like over the top mini games, and you enjoy like GTA style stuff where you're like part of a gang or whatever, I think you'll have fun with it. And yeah, definitely, even though it does have some issues, like, control wise, it feels like it's from like last gen. Or, I mean, a last gen. Like, the controls do feel a bit weird at times, and like some of the facial animation isn't the best, that sort of thing. And it has some issues, but overall, I've still had fun with it. I think it's about like $40, I believe. And honestly, for like having like the base game with a bunch of DLC, I think it's worth it, I do think it's a big game that has a lot to do. So I think the price is worth it, but different people have different opinions. But yeah, I guess overall, all I can really say is that if you've enjoyed playing Saints Row, like in the past, like on the PS3 or 360 or whatever, and you have a Switch, I think it's worth picking up. I think it's worth going back to. And if you've never played the series before, then I don't know. Like I said, if you like GTA style games and you like over the top, like weird, crude humor, I think you'll enjoy it. And so yeah, I'm gonna try to finish up. I think I'm like 60% through the game, so I'm gonna keep playing it, but I've been having fun with it. So, it's a big yes for me. I recommend it. I think it's worth it. So there you go. Alrighty, and with that being said, that does it for my week. Like I said, at the beginning, I didn't do too much, but I still think it was some stuff that, was worth talking about. So there you go. Hopefully you guys learned about some new stuff you want to check out. With that being said, I think we should transfer over to the news. The first news story that I want to talk about is that Super Mario Maker 2 has a bunch of details now. I don't know how many of you know, but basically on I want to say it was like the 15th, right? I think it was Wednesday. There was like a little direct centered on Super Mario Maker 2, and they released like a whole bunch of information. Like, honestly, this game is just so jam-packed that like it would take forever to talk about like all the new stuff. But, I'm gonna try to just kind of give like a summary. Basically, they talked about there's going to be a story mode, which like that's really interesting. Basically, it's going to be like this little story mode where Mario's trying to help rebuild Princess Peach's castle. And so to do this, you have to collect coins, and to collect coins, you have to play through all sorts of like levels. So like that's really cool. Basically you're playing through levels, earning coins, and like you use that to build her castle. And at the same time, this mode is meant to inspire you to like, make your own levels. So like that's really cool. There's going to be a whole bunch of stuff from Super Mario 3D World. There's going to be like the Cat Mario power up. There's going to be clear pipes, piranha creepers, all sorts of stuff. There's going to be all sorts of stuff, that doesn't even have to do with like Super Mario 3D World, but they're adding slopes. They're adding, an on-off switch that helps you like switch back and forth between like red blocks and blue blocks. So, like that's really cool. They're adding, the little angry sun from Super Mario Bros. 3. Like, I always love that guy. It's just the sun that sits in the sky looking pissed off. They're putting him in the game. What else? I'm trying to like read through. They're adding course themes. They're adding multiplayer, both versus and co-op, as well as the ability to like make courses, together. And what else? I don't know. There's just so much stuff. Like I said, it would take like a long time to talk about everything. But yeah, basically they're adding like more themes. They're adding multiplayer. They're adding story mode. They're adding a whole bunch of stuff you can add to your levels. And the last thing they talked about, which is kind of interesting, they're adding this thing where if you buy Super Mario Maker 2 for, I think that, like the regular price is what, like $59.99 USD. If you buy it for $69.99, it's going to include a free 12 months of Nintendo Switch Online. So like that's really cool. And not only that, but they're also launching something, actually I think they already launched it, where if you have Nintendo Switch Online, there's like these vouchers that you pay $99.99 and basically you can use it towards 2 new games. So like if you want to use it to buy Super Mario Maker 2, you can use it for like that, and then you can buy another full price game. So basically you're saving like $20. So I mean, it's not like the best system, but you know, if there's like 2 new games that you want to buy, like that's not bad because you do save like $20. But you know, it's kind of messy, but I can see it, you know. So yeah, I mean, if you guys were excited for Super Mario Maker 2, you know, there's so much stuff that they added to it. I think it looks really cool. Honestly, I was only like mildly interested before, but after seeing how they've added so much stuff, including like the co-op, like I'm actually pretty excited, and I'm thinking of maybe buying it because it just looks like it's a really cool deal, you know, like having, you know, the game and the multiplayer and all that stuff. And you know, if you want to take advantage, you can buy the one that comes with like another year free of like the Nintendo Switch Online. Like I think that's a really good deal. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. There you go. I mean, if you're looking forward to the game, you know, look forward to how much stuff they added to it, because it just looks like it's jam-packed with stuff. It looks really cool. Check it out. If you haven't seen the direct before, it's worth watching for all the different details. There you go. Speaking of look forward to it, I have been looking forward to the day that they give more content to Moss. And finally, after like so much waiting, according to this news story, Moss is getting new content coming soon. For anyone who doesn't know what I'm talking about, Moss is this VR game that it's really cute. Basically, you help this little mouse named Quill. Her uncle gets kidnapped, and so you're helping her, you know, traverse the world and fight enemies and stuff. And I gotta say, I think it's like one of my favorite like VR games, because you basically, like, you're standing off to the side, and if Quill looks up at you, Quill sees you as like this spirit, like just hanging out. And so it's really cool because like you run around, you solve puzzles, you fight enemies, all that stuff. And yeah, you're like playing as this little mouse, that this like cute little mouse is on an adventure, and you know, she wants to save her uncle and save the kingdom from like this evil snake or whatever. And I love that game. You know, for anyone who's wondering, I have a review of it on my channel. I think it's really worth playing. The only complaint is that it does feel short, especially for the price. And luckily though, like I said, you know, tying back to the article, apparently Moss is getting free DLC that it's supposed to include a new mini boss, new environments, puzzles, character interactions, story, and an alternate weapon / armor set. So that's really cool, especially if it really is free, like it says right here. I'm really hoping it is. Like, that's awesome, because that means that basically like the game's getting an expansion. And it makes sense, because if you've played the game where it leaves off, like, it seems like there's supposed to be more to the story. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. The only thing that kind of sucks is that, like, if you read the title of the article and read through the article, it does say that it's coming to the Oculus Quest first. Like, I guess it'll hit the Oculus Quest, and then, you know, like a few months later or whatever, it'll hit other systems like the PlayStation VR. So it does suck, you know, having to wait. But I think it's fine, you know, especially the fact that it's free. That makes me go like, all right, you know, it's worth waiting. But I think it's awesome. I'm really looking forward to it. And, you know, yeah, if you're like me and you did play Moss and you've been like waiting for the day that they release more content for it, then there you go. You know, there's new content on the way. So look forward to it. Moving on from something super wholesome like Moss to something not so wholesome, I actually heard this story on a podcast that I listen to, and I want to talk about it because I think it's just really interesting. But basically, it's this article from Kotaku where they talk to this employee that, you know, they worked on Mortal Kombat 11, and it's this really interesting article that it's titled, "I'd Have These Extremely Graphic Dreams. What It's Like to Work on Ultra-Violent Games Like Mortal Kombat 11. And, you know, I'm not going to talk about it, like, the whole thing, because I do think it's worth reading the article for yourselves. It'll be linked, you know, in the description below. But basically, to give a summary of it, it's about, like, they sit down and they talk to this employee that they kind of talk about how working on a really violent game like Mortal Kombat 11 like has affected their psyche. And at first, it's the kind of thing where when you hear that, you go, oh, come on, Mortal Kombat 11, even if it is like really violent, all the violence, to be fair, it is really cartoony. Like it's so violent, it's cartoony, right? I don't know, like when you see someone get like a spear like jabbed through like their eye, but then they like keep fighting, like, you don't take that seriously because like the gore is just so over the top. But the thing is that what this person's talking about, that even like if they think they can handle the gore, it's all the work that goes into it that like has affected their psyche. And it's one of those things that make me go like, oh, like that makes sense. Like they talk about how, like all the research they have to do to try to, get ideas and try to like, get inspiration for how like certain gore should look like that's what weighs down on them. Like there's a part where they talk about, people like in the office, they do research of like blood splatter and how a body looks when it's been hung and like that sort of thing. And I guess that's the thing that gets to them because, you have to look at so much gore over and over again to recreate it that like that's where it like starts to weigh on you. And, I guess it kind of makes sense. For instance, for this podcast, the work that goes into it, like you guys don't see it. Like you guys think I just record it, upload it, and that's it. But it's not. There's all the work that goes into it. There's looking up the articles. There's looking up the content creator. There's thinking of the music I'm going to put at the end. There's downloading the music I'm going to put at the end. There's making the thumbnail, getting all the images, putting them together. There's sitting down, recording the podcast, editing it, if there's anything that needs to be taken out, if there's any, volume mixing that I have to do, all that sort of thing. And, like as I'm doing this, like even the podcast part, like I record it, then I listen to it, then I listen to it again as I'm editing it, then I listen to it again before I upload it. So, I mean, if that much work goes into something like a podcast, think of how much work goes into like animating all that gore. Like you have to look at it over and over and over again to make sure like the textures are right, the animations are right, all that stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, it really is interesting how it's maybe something you don't think about, but it sucks for these people that work on it. And, it's one of those things where a lot of people say, well, like if they can't handle it, then they shouldn't be working on it. But like, that's not the point. The point is that like, someone's gonna do it, like the games make too much money to not do it. And the point isn't even that they can't handle it. The point is that like it weighs on them over time. Like that's the point. Like any other job, after so much exposure to it, it just weighs on you. And it's one of those things where it's interesting because there's not really anything in place to help these people out. Like it's not like, you can work on the game for some months, look at all the gore, and then you can get moved to a different project. Basically, like if you're in charge of all the animations and stuff, you're just stuck doing it for like the whole development cycle. And I don't know, it's one of those things where maybe I'm not explaining it, the best I can, but I think it's really worth reading because like I said, it's just a very interesting story about something that we don't think about that much. Like every time you see a game or like a movie that gets made that has like gore in it, like we don't think about all the people working behind the scenes who have to be exposed to it like again and again and again as they're putting it together. And I don't know, like I said, I think it's a really interesting article. I think it gives you something to think about. It really does make you wonder like, hadn't thought about that before, but I think you guys should go read it. And like I said, it'll be, linked in the description below. I would say check it out because it is a very interesting read. Moving on, the next one is actually also a Mortal Kombat news story. This one, though, is that apparently, they've been rumoring it for years, but apparently a Mortal Kombat movie, like it's finally being worked on. And as the title states, Mortal Kombat movie will film in Australia. Pre-production starts this month. So yeah, back in the day, I want to say it was like 90s or something. Yeah, it was like early 90s. They made a Mortal Kombat movie and then they made a sequel that like wasn't very good. Like, like the first movie was fine. The second one's just like really bad. But, since then they've said, they're going to make another Mortal Kombat movie. First, they said it was going to be like a sequel. Then they said it was going to be like a reboot. And they've been talking about it for years. But yeah, it looks like they finally are going to do it. And, as always, I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I think anytime you try to make a video game movie, with the exception of maybe like this new like Detective Pikachu movie, Like, whenever you try to make a video game movie, it usually doesn't go good. Because, trying to, like, translate and, like, transition a video game, which is, like, super interactive, into, like, a movie, it just doesn't work that well. And not only that, but I do think it's kind of silly to have, like, a Mortal Kombat movie when the games are basically already like movies, like something like Detective Pikachu. At least I can see the thought process there, because there was like a whole world of Pokemon to explore and showing us Pokemon like in a photorealistic way, that sort of thing. But here though, especially like the newest game, the graphics are already like really good. Like, it already looks pretty lifelike. And, like I said, you're taking something that's interactive and trying to make a movie out of it, which is like kind of weird. So on the one hand, I don't know. I just feel like this is really unnecessary. But on the other hand, it's one of those things where, like, if you are going to make a movie, Mortal Kombat is one that's very easy to make. It's just a series of people fighting each other, and it's super over the top with people running around, and there's all these factions and stuff. So, I mean, if it doesn't feel like it would be a very hard movie to make, as long as you have people like in some sort of like a tournament fighting each other, and there's, like some super over the top villain, like it works, but I don't know. It's just one of those things where we'll have to see how this goes, because like I said, video game movies don't have a great track record. The first Mortal Kombat movie was fine. Maybe if it's more of that style, like I said, where there's like a big tournament and stuff, maybe it'll work, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. It could be good. Most likely it'll be bad, but I don't know. I'm interested to keep an eye out for it. So, I suggest you guys all do the same if you're, fans of the series. So, yeah. Moving on, the other movie news story that I have for this week is that Maleficent, Mistress of Evil got a trailer this week. I don't know how many of you remember, but only a few weeks back, I actually covered a news story where they were saying that there was going to be a Maleficent sequel. And yeah, I mean, during that week's podcast, when I talked about it, like I said, I was confused because number one, it looks like the first movie basically covered everything it needed to. And number two, it's really weird because in this version, they made Maleficent more of like an anti-hero, where like she kind of ends up being like the hero that saves Sleeping Beauty, and she was more of like a mother figure to her, and she was just misunderstood, whatever. So seeing that they're making a sequel that's called Mistress of Evil, like that's weird. Because if you took so much time and effort to make her the good guy, are you going to really make her the bad guy? Like, I don't know. It's just really weird. And yeah, if you watch the trailer, like it just raises more questions. Because in it, basically they show that she's like at odds with like the queen or whatever, and it shows like she's gonna have to like tap into her like dark magic to like fight her. And so yeah, I don't know, like this movie just seems so weird. Like it feels like it came out of nowhere. It feels really unnecessary, even more unnecessary than the first one. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't really know what to think about it. The one thing I am thinking though, I am wondering if maybe they're trying to mislead us. That's something I was thinking about earlier as I was putting this together. Like, what if Mistress of Evil doesn't refer to Maleficent? What if, like, the Mistress of Evil is actually, like, somebody else? And even though Maleficent is using, like, her dark magic to fight, what if it's because she's still the good guy and she's fighting the Mistress of Evil? I wouldn't be surprised if they try to take that angle, but I don't know. Like, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, like I said, if you want to check out the trailer, it's really weird. I don't know. The whole movie just looks strange and it feels really unnecessary. So if you're excited for this movie, more power to you. Meanwhile, I'm kind of just sitting here, shrugging because it's like, okay, I guess we're getting a sequel. But, there you go. If you're excited for it, look forward to it, I guess, because it is coming October 2019, so there you go. Moving on to other fantastical stuff, Disenchantment Part 2 has just been announced that it's going to come out September on Netflix. Now, for anyone who doesn't remember or maybe didn't watch it, Disenchantment is, it's by the guy who made The Simpsons and Futurama. His name is Matt Groening, and it's about this girl that she's like a princess, but she's rebellious. She has these two friends. One is her personal demon, And, he's played by Eric Andre. He's like this little black demon that follows her around. The other one is this like little elf called Elfo, and he kind of has like a crush on her. And, the first season, or I guess like the first part of the first season, it was fine. It wasn't like the worst thing in the world, but it wasn't the best thing in the world. Like, it was pretty in the middle. It feels like it really doesn't, like, it feels like it doesn't know its identity yet, Like, I hope that it kind of, like, feels more comfortable with itself, going forward. And, yeah, so, I mean, for anyone who is looking forward to seeing more of it, especially because, like, the first half kind of ended, like, on a cliffhanger sort of thing, I guess we're getting more episodes. Like I said, they're coming out in September. And, yeah, September 20th, it's going to be another 10 episodes. So yeah, I mean, if you liked the first half and you want to watch more is coming. And if you felt kind of, like I said, shaky on it, I don't know. I'm just hoping that it gets better. So I don't know. Here's to hoping that, the second part, hopefully, it's a little better, but we'll see how it goes. So yeah, coming September 20th on Netflix, more Disenchantment. Look forward to it. Moving on, I don't know how many of you remember that show called Invader Zim, but apparently Invader Zim Enter the Florpus is getting a movie on Netflix this summer. So yeah, personally, I have watched Invader Zim, but it was like during a time I didn't really have cable, So I know I just watched like episodes here and there at like friends' houses, and I remembered it was fine. I remember liking it, and I know I've heard some good things about it, but it's unfortunately one of those things where I don't really like remember too much of it. Maybe one of these days I should check it out. But like I said, I know there's a lot of people who are huge fans. So yeah, I mean, if you've been, sad that Invader Zim isn't on TV or whatever, that it's gone, I mean, there's a movie coming out, and I think it's supposed to be by like all the same people who were like in charge of the original show, I believe. I think that's what I read earlier. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have been waiting for more Invader Zim, then there you go. There's more coming. And yeah, like I said, I don't really know what to say because unfortunately, I don't have like that much history with it. But I do know that a lot of people have praised the show before. I know there's a lot of fans. So there you go. Look forward to it. If you've been waiting for more, there's a movie. So here's hoping it's good, right? Finally, the last news story that I had to talk about, is an anime news story, or I guess this case it's a manga news story. But basically, for anyone who's ever looked at my anime reviews on the channel, I did a review once for this show called Welcome to the Ballroom, and I really love that show. I think it's really good. I think the way it actually gets you interested in ballroom dancing, like, it's really interesting. And yeah, I watched, the anime, and I really enjoyed it. And I had thought about, reading the manga because I know the manga goes farther, but it was one of those things where when I looked up, where the manga was at, I think it basically stops like right after where the anime does. And then after that, it was like on a long hiatus. And so basically that's what this article is about. It says, Welcome to the Ballroom manga prepares to return from hiatus. So yeah, I mean, if you read the article, it says that the manga went on hiatus in December 2017 due to the mangaka's health. And it had planned to come back like in April 2018, but it just never did. I guess there was just complications and stuff. But it looks like, yeah, finally it is coming back. So there you go. Like I said, when I watched the anime, I thought it was really good. Like, I thought the characters were really cool. I thought the way it gets you hyped about, the sport was really awesome. And I don't know, like, overall, I just think it's a really good series. And, like I said, I had been interested in reading the manga, and it's nice to know it's coming back. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess there you go. If you've been waiting for it to come back, it's coming back. And yeah, if you haven't looked at this series before, then yeah, I would say check this like series out because it's just really good. I love it. I would say it's like one of my tops because I just really enjoyed it. So, there you go. Look forward to it. I know I am. Alrighty, guys. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of another news week. As usual, hopefully there was something you guys found educational, informative, interesting in some way. I don't know. Hopefully the news stories, hopefully one of them stood out to you, that sort of thing. And moving on to the last section of the podcast, I know I really dropped the ball last week, because I didn't really plan for a content creator, but then I kind of did suggest somebody like off the top of my head, and it was sloppy, I'll admit. Like, luckily I did have someone that I do think is interesting to look at, but I know the way I did it was sloppy, so I do apologize. But luckily this week I do have a content creator, and it's a really good one that I think you guys will love. So this week, for my content creator spotlight, I present Dave Maggot. Now, I know the name is weird, but trust me, Dave is a really sweet guy. He's really awesome. So, taking a step back, Dave Maggot, his channel currently is sitting at 1,689 subscribers. So he in no way needs my help, but I just think he's an awesome guy. Basically, he's this talented guy that he's directed a movie before, like a little, horror comedy movie called Groundhog. He's published short horror stories, and he's a YouTuber. Basically, he does all sorts of content. If you go to his channel, he has so much. He has horror movie reviews. He has skits. He has a lot of unboxing of movies and pop vinyls, that sort of thing. And yeah, I don't really know what else to say. He's just a really cool, really sweet guy. I'm gonna kind of list out some of his videos so you guys kind of get an idea of what he does. So for instance, about a week ago, he did an unboxing of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and then he did another one where he unboxed the Lego Movie 2. Now, they're very short little videos, but just seeing him, be really excited and showing off the DVD and looking at the box and stuff, those are always really fun. And then if you go a little bit farther, for instance, he has one where he unboxed a pop vinyl. It was Moon Knight. I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with that character, but it's also this really nice video where he shows us the little figure. He opens it up, he shows it off, and he kind of tells you a story of where he got it from, and he kind of talks about, pop vinyls and where he shops for them, that sort of thing. I'm honestly not even that much of a fan of pop vinyls usually, but just seeing his videos, it's fun seeing how excited he is about his new purchase, so I think that's fun. And when I said, when it comes to reviews, for instance, he did a review not that long ago. Here it says it was 5-6 days ago. He actually did a review on A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge. That was a good little review. Before that, he did a review on Caru Shell, which is this really weird, that's the thing. He does reviews of all sorts of horror movies you may not have heard of. So that was really cool. He did one on this movie called Mrs. Claus, which is this slasher film where Mrs. Claus is the villain. That was really fun to hear about. And yeah, he does, like I said, he does unboxings, he does reviews. He has little skits he does. He had a video, for instance, where he was showing off all his mask collection. That was really fun. And yeah, he's just a really sweet guy, really supportive. I've seen that he, always takes the time to comment on people's videos. I know he did a video not too long ago, similar to this content creator spotlight, where he actually gave a shout out to 2 channels who are friends of his. And that was really nice. And so yeah, like I said, Dave Maggot, he needs no help at all from me, but all the same, I think you guys should check him out. He's a really cool, really nice guy. And Dave, if you're listening to this, I'm really glad that I learned about your channel and everything, because I think you're a really cool dude. All of your content is always really fun. And yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, dude. I think that you're a really nice guy, really supportive, and your content's just fun. All the different stuff, like I said, even if it's stuff that maybe I'm not 100% super excited about, the fact that you're enthusiastic about it always makes it worth watching. So keep up the good work, dude. And yeah, for anyone else, like I said, check him out, give him some love. I think his channel is really fun, really worth checking out. So, there you go. And with that being said, that brings us to the end of another podcast. That is one more in the bag. As usual, hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. Hopefully there was something you guys got out of it. Whether it was, hearing about me talk about Millennium Actress, which I'm serious, check it out. I can't say it enough. Or whether it was one of the news stories that caught your attention, or the content creator spotlight, something. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast and thought it was good. And yeah, to wrap up, As always, my name is Wannabe Reviewer. I'm the host of this podcast. The Wannabe podcast is available on SoundCloud, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iTunes, and Spotify. And if you want to follow me, my social media is Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, it should be at wannabe_review. And on Instagram, it should just be at wannabe_reviewer. And yeah, not only that, but last but not least, I have a YouTube channel, Wannabe Reviewer, where, if you follow me over there, every week, usually on Wednesdays, I do some sort of a review on media, whether it's anime, video games, movies, TV shows. I try to do some sort of a little review of something that I've watched or played that, I think is worth sharing with everybody. So if that sounds interesting, follow me over there. And yeah, with that being said, I will try my hardest to, do a podcast next week. And if I'm lucky, maybe I'll have some friends on it. But, if it doesn't work out, then, until the next time I see you guys, so to speak, I hope you guys have a wonderful, next 2 weeks if I don't, do another podcast episode. And yeah, with that being said, my name is Wannabe Reviewer, and I'll catch you guys next time.